So earlier today, Brian Gutekunst, Packers GM, spoke with some Packers reporters, and I want to share a few different things from this interview, and I'll start off with Aaron Jones. Of course, Aaron Jones was released by the Packers after he didn't agree to the pay cut, which they wanted to happen for him, which was around a 50% pay cut overall. He, of course, gets released, gets signed by the Minnesota Vikings, and so Brian Gutekunst was asked how tough it was to release Aaron Jones, and here is his response. He said, yeah, really tough. I mean, obviously the business of football never stops, and those things are, any player that's kind of, committed the way he has to our football team, just the way he was in our locker room, and obviously a very productive player. That's always tough, but I think over time you get used to it, but that's just kind of the business of football. But we wish him well. He couldn't have represented us any better in his time with us, but very tough. I think we've seen in Green Bay the past few seasons that Brian Gutekunst is willing to make tough decisions. He doesn't typically go based off of just his emotions, which is probably wise when you're the GM. You can't always make decisions from the heart and just keep players just because maybe they're fan favorites or they have been impactful in your team in the past. And I wish that he would have kept Jones. I wish the Packers would have maybe given him a little bit higher offer than the pay cut which they were trying to give him, because I think that Aaron Jones still playing at a top tier level. I do think he should have gotten some kind of pay cut, but the level at which they wanted to give him a pay cut, I understand it. The Vikings didn't pay him that much more. I would have liked to see Aaron Jones stay around, but Gutekunst has been known to let go of players slightly before maybe the fan base was ready to. And I think, of course, when you have a player of Aaron Jones' caliber, a player who's as beloved as he is by the entire fan base, it makes these things that much harder. But when you just look at the money, you look at the fact that Aaron Jones is getting older, you look at the fact that he did miss a lot of games last year. I understand why things happen as they have, even though they are unfortunate. Then here we have from Wes Hodquist, who says this on X: Brian Gutekunst offered good insight on Keyshawn Nixon and signing him to a long-term deal. Said Jeff Hafley broke down Nixon's film and felt he was a good fit for his defense. And here's a quote from Gutekunst: I certainly feel really good about Keyshawn and what he did as a first-year starter with that many snaps in the nickel and where he's headed. Having some stability there is something that gives me some peace. And I think if the Packers wouldn't have brought back Keyshawn Nixon, corner would have been that much higher of a priority in the upcoming draft. But when you do get a guy who at least has experience in the NFL, and while he's not a top-tier starter, I still think he's an average corner in the NFL. And so Packers don't have as big a need at corner, even though I assume they'll add some in this draft. Then here we have from Ryan Wood on X. He says this: Brian Gutekunst explains how Xavier McKinney signing came about. Made clear Packers specifically wanted McKinney. That he was a premium player at their biggest positional need was no small fortune, of course. And then Gutekunst said this: to me, it was more about the player. As we evaluate every free agent class, there's very few guys that really fit the criteria he did that become available. Usually, players like Xavier, most of the time, it's more trade-type situations when they become available, if at all. So when he became available, as we went through the process, we had a number of players where we said, if these guys do become available, I think we have to consider bringing them and trying to acquire them. A lot of those players, before we got to the actual date, were gone by that time, either re-signed or franchised or things like that. He wasn't, so we aggressively pursued it. You never know once you get into that Monday afternoon how things are going to look, but just really excited. His next 3 years are going to be the best football he plays in our minds, and we are excited about that. So the Packers really wanted to bring him in, and luckily they did. I think he's probably my favorite signing so far of this offseason. Then here we have from Matt Schneidman, who says this: Brian Gutekunst says the Packers have had preliminary extension talks with Jordan Love's reps. Certainly the sooner the better, but at the same time, I think we want to make sure we do it the right way. We've started, but it's not something that's going to go quickly, I don't think. And we won't see a Jordan Love extension till May because he signed his last extension last May. You have to wait a full year, and so that's when that time will be up in May. And it does feel, or I assume, as I've thought, that Love will probably get $50+ million, at least $50 million a year, and become one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's just going to take time for them to negotiate that deal. But that is all I have for this video. If you want more Packers news, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.